Detroit Lions in panic mode. They waived Terrion Arnold, then watched their cornerback savior sign with a division rival. So what are the Lions hiding? Buckle up, Lions fans, because this offseason just took the wildest turn yet. And if you thought the Terrion Arnold saga was over, we are just getting started. In the span of about a week, the Detroit Lions cut ties with a former first-round cornerback facing 8 felony charges, watched one of the best available replacements sign for pocket change with a division rival, and then said absolutely nothing about it. Nothing. Radio silence. And that silence is exactly what has this fan base losing its mind right now. Because either Brad Holmes knows something we don't, or the Lions just let a golden opportunity walk right out the door for $3.8 million. Let that sink in for a second. $3.8 million. That's what it would have cost. And they didn't do it. Let's rewind, because the story here is almost too dramatic for fiction. Terrion Arnold, the 24 overall pick in the 2024 draft, the guy who was supposed to be QB1 of Detroit's secondary for the next decade, is now sitting at home on house arrest, facing charges that include armed robbery and kidnapping, staring down the barrel of a Florida courtroom instead of an NFL training camp. The Lions didn't hesitate. They released him. They ate a dead cap number north of $6.5 million this year alone, and they moved on so fast it made your head spin. And look, credit where it's due, this was not a football decision. This was the right decision. When a player is facing multiple felony counts that could carry a life sentence, you don't sit there and wait to see how the legal process shakes out while he's wearing your jersey on Sundays. Brad Holmes and this front office did what they had to do. No excuses, no special treatment, no waiting for a starter or a second chance, because, let's be honest, Arnold was never that star to begin with. Go back and rewatch his rookie tape. It is ugly. Getting torched, getting turned around, looking lost against receivers who had no business beating him. Carlton Davis, of all people, looked like a shut-down corner standing next to him. So when the front office decided this was a talent problem as much as it was a legal one, nobody in Detroit was exactly crying into their connies about it. But here's where the story gets juicy, because just days after cutting Arnold loose, a golden parachute landed right in Detroit's lap, and the Lions just let it float on by. Veteran cornerback Rasul Douglas, 30 years old, 10 seasons of NFL experience, a former third-round pick out of West Virginia who has quietly become one of the most productive boundary corners still walking the free agent market, was sitting there and signed. And what did he do last season with the Miami Dolphins? He balled out. Targeted 82 times, yes, but he also tied for the second most passes defended of his entire career, snagged back-to-back interceptions in November, and was even named a Defensive Player of the Week after a 5-pass breakup, 1 interception masterclass against the Jets. This is a man who just posted arguably the 3rd best season of his whole career at age 30. Not declining, improving. And the price tag? A modest 1-year deal worth up to $3.8 million. Pocket change in today's NFL economy. So who scooped him up? The Washington Commanders. Not the Chiefs, not some big market powerhouse throwing wild money around. The Commanders, a division rival to nobody in the NFC North, but a team that clearly saw value where Detroit apparently did not. And here's the twist that makes Lions fans want to scream into a pillow. Washington had just released Marshawn Lattimore in March after his tenure there completely imploded, so they were desperate at cornerback too. If a team coming off a disastrous cornerback experiment could identify Douglas as the move, why in the world couldn't the team that had literally just watched its projected starting outside corner get shipped off in handcuffs? The Lions had every reason in the world to make this call. They had cap space. They had positional desperation written all over their depth chart, and they let him walk for less than what some backup punters make. So what exactly is Brad Holmes thinking? Here's the theory bouncing around Lions Twitter right now, and honestly, it makes some sense even if it's a little unsettling. The front office seems to genuinely believe in the internal options already sitting in the room. DJ Reed is expected back at full health after his injury issues. Ennis Rakestraw is entering year 2 with real starter buzz. Rock Ya-Sin is being counted on as a steady veteran presence on the boundary. And then there's the wild card, rookie Keith Abney, who could push for reps if he shows anything in camp. The optimistic read is that Detroit trusts this rebuilt, no superstar unit to hold its own, especially with Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch patrolling the back end at safety, a duo that has quietly become one of the most disruptive turnover-generating tandems in the entire league. And that turnover piece matters more than people realize. When you dig into the numbers from last season, Detroit's defense was genuinely middle of the pack in yards allowed, Not the disaster it sometimes felt like watching on Sundays, but where they bled points was in the turnover battle, plain and simple. Take a team like the Chicago Bears, a squad that wasn't some juggernaut on paper, but rode an aggressive, ball-hawking defense to an 11-6 record because they kept handing their offense extra possessions. That is the blueprint. Get takeaways, and suddenly an average defense looks like a championship-caliber unit playing alongside an elite offense. But here's the nagging worry that just will not go away no matter how much you squint at the depth chart. Is we believe in our guys a real philosophy? Or is it just cover for not wanting to spend the money? Because the free agent cornerback market right now is not some barren wasteland. There are still legitimate names sitting there waiting for a phone call. Trayvon Diggs, 28 years old, a former Pro Bowler who once led the entire league with 11 interceptions in a single season, isn't signed after a rough stretch in Dallas and a forgettable cameo in Green Bay. Marshawn Lattimore, one of the most talented cover corners of his generation when healthy, is out there too, even if the injury history and the disastrous Washington chapter make him a real gamble. Tre'Davious White remains available as a cheaper, buy low flyer for a team desperate for depth. And Kenny Moore, while more of a natural slot defender than an outside boundary piece, is another name still floating around for teams needing rotational help. The point is, this isn't a case of the well running dry. The Lions have options. They're simply choosing, at least for now, not to use them. And that is exactly why the fan base is so on edge right now. Because we've seen this movie before. Remember last year when the Lions waited and waited at wide receiver, hoping the board would fall their way, only to scramble late for Tim Patrick after the position had already thinned out around them? Nobody wants a repeat of that indecision playing out at a spot as critical as outside cornerback, especially when the presumptive QB1 room just got blown up overnight because of a legal scandal nobody saw coming. Dan Campbell has enough on his plate managing a locker room, a Super Bowl aspiration, and now the awkward reality of not having to answer weekly questions about why a former first-round pick isn't developing, because that problem simply doesn't exist anymore. It's gone. Erased. Which, weirdly, might be viewed internally as addition by subtraction. No more excuses. No more patience runs thin narratives. Just a clean slate and a chance for this cornerback room to prove it could be a rock-solid, if unspectacular, group heading into training camp. Still, rock solid but unspectacular is a very different pitch than we have this locked down, and until Detroit either makes a surprise late addition or rake straw, and Yasin starts showing out in padded practices, this is going to remain the single biggest question mark hanging over this Lions defense heading into the season. Brad Holmes has earned plenty of trust over the years for building rosters through the draft and quietly identifying value in free agency. Maybe this really is one of those calculated bets where internal development wins out over splashy outside additions. Or maybe the front office just got caught flat-footed after the Arnold situation exploded, and by the time they turned their attention to the market, the best value option had already walked into Washington's building instead. Either way, one thing is clear. This story is far from over. Training camp battles are about to determine who actually lines up across from opposing number one receivers in September, and every single practice rep at cornerback this summer just became appointment viewing for Lions fans desperate for answers. So here's what we want to know from you. Do you trust Brad Holmes and this front office to make this cornerback room work with what's already on the roster, or should the Lions be actively hunting the free agent market right now, before training camp doors close and the good options disappear for good? Drop your take down in the comments. We want to hear every single opinion, whether your team trusts the process or team panic button. And if this breakdown got you fired up, do us a favor, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already so you never miss a single Lions update this offseason, and turn on that notification bell, because trust us, with this front office, something new is always right around the corner. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.